I think I should make my attitude to the Roman Catholic Church and the Christian faith clear. So now I'll be talking for a while, perhaps without much focus, because such a free flow of ideas is best for expressing the truth. So to start with, I believe in God, and for me God is the highest authority. My idea of God is different from what is normally assumed in religions. I believe that God is the beginning of all, and so from the Roman Catholic or Christian perspective, the God that spoke to us through the Bible, I mean through what we have today as the Bible, is the same God that created Hinduism, or gave the impulse for the rise, for the beginning of Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. Well, in the case of Islam it's obvious because it's the same tradition, so as far as Islam, Christianity and Judaism are concerned, this is obviously one God. It cannot be otherwise because the three belong to the Abrahamic tradition, so this is one nation. And whoever superimposes other interpretations lies. But there are also those other religions. And apart from the religions that still exist, there was life before. The ancient religions. So the ancient Virgin Artemis is as sacred as well, perhaps taking it to Saint Mary, the God's mother, would be going too far. But other virgins, well, it's difficult. It's difficult to relate actually because she's the goddess, so she cannot be compared to a saint. But this is a different order. So what I just want to say is that I do not see an opposition here, and I believe that whatsoever fight is political. So this is my faith, to cut a long story short. I don't know yet about the beginnings. I have not tried to imagine it as yet, because it seems there would be a need for more than one Eden. Still taking the Roman Catholic perspective, because I was born in Poland. I was baptized to be a Roman Catholic, so I believe that this is not an accident, that there's some purpose behind it. So generally, I have not superimposed an order on the intuitions that I have yet. But I have no doubt about the beginning in God as a spiritual existence, being. And I do not see contradictions where others do. Now, I believe that the spiritual history of humankind is the history of regress, paradoxically enough. Regress in the spiritual terms. Again, if we take the Roman Catholic, the Christian faith, the Abrahamic tradition, well, it just took one generation for a man to become a murderer. Obviously, there are philosophical questions concerning the nature of God, but I have not been working on it yet, so just making a point. There's a huge problem in Christianity, because if we think in terms of good and evil, because the birth of Jesus obviously meant the death of the many innocent children. Mm. So this is generally my attitude. I have all those questions that have never been answered, and the many that have never been asked, by me at least, nor have I heard anyone asking them. The Edenic order, the nakedness aside, but the order of the man being a man and the woman being a woman is the only order I accept. I don't accept the modern changes at all. For me, this is the end of humankind. And there's no agreement in me. So it might be a paradox, because you have heard me saying all those things, including the annihilation, including the pronouncement of the annihilation of humankind. But you need to understand the morality behind it. So if the humankind agrees to such atrocities, then the humankind loses the right for existence. Because if if a group in the humankind says, well, it's totally fine to annihilate these people, then obviously it generally says, well, perhaps you should be annihilated. And when others agree, give their consent to it, they are in the same category for me. Of course, they are not the movers, but their moral condition is really at the level. And there are people who are unaware too. This is a huge question for me, because that I have not answered yet, and I have not looked for the answers yet. But certainly it is an important question, whether the people who are unaware can be considered guilty or not. Should they have been trying to become aware or not? Can they be blamed in any way, or held responsible? I don't know. But what I want to emphasize is that these are important points for me. So this is not like, oh, okay, so let's have a conversation and decide if they are guilty or not. So, this is a huge work with a lot of considerations and a real search for understanding and knowing what and generally a big thing, not something insignificant. I totally don't accept the current rule over the planet Earth, because what's happening on the planet Earth obviously is the effect of the rule. So those who are in power right now are doing a really poor job. I'm sorry. I have always been honest and sincere. I might like people, but and I have always been more strict on the people above me in the hierarchy than the people below me, because I believe that power obliges. I'm in that terrible condition right now, because I have never agreed to what has been going on, and I have expressed disagreement. I had believed that there would be many people who would not agree, and that we could do something. Obviously, it has not proved to be the case. So this is the naivete of someone going to the prosecutor's office to inform that there's a crime going on, and learning that actually the prosecutor's office is participating in it, so the person gets punished. all these are manifestations of the moral condition, the spiritual condition of humankind. And how does it relate to God? I cannot understand why God lets it happen. So I believe that all the people who have gone through war crimes, for instance, might have had the same doubt or just lack of understanding. But I also believe that there is something about the exercise of the free will. So if you are given the free will, it obliges. And basically, if we are not able to live at the moral level, then it strikes back at us. So I cannot say that the humankind does not deserve the punishment, because I truly believe that the humankind deserves the very punishment. I have never been interested in evil, so it has absolutely no attraction for me. For me, evil is weakness. So the person who cannot be good and live a noble life becomes evil. So this is, if someone is after evil, from my perspective, this person is totally weak. And they can have all sorts of ways of destruction. But I look down on them, to be honest. Even if they belittle me and actually make me seem little and small and insignificant, I never feel this way, because this is how the crime works. So if you are a victim of a crime, you have the power over the person who has committed the crime against you. This is the moral power. And you might suffer, and you might even be broken at one point, because obviously there's a limit to what we can experience. But it doesn't change the real relation between the criminal and the victim. So it's quite the reverse. It's not that the victim is someone weak, and well, my case proves it beyond the least doubt. Overall, I believe that the Roman Catholic Church has failed. So this is my attitude to the Roman Catholic Church. It has been, and to Christianity, it has been 2000 years, and we as humankind are in the condition that we are in, which to me, the way I understand the appearance of Jesus Christ is a kind of zero situation. So people had been committing crimes and living immorally, and there appeared Jesus. It was a chance, and I believe that what he did when he died on the cross is actually creating the situation of this new beginning. So the sins that had been committed had been taken off and somehow erased, because he had taken it on himself. So that was the spiritual power which is divine. I do not believe any human being can do it. Although recently I have had some thoughts concerning the suffering on the cross, that perhaps if people suffer, they can somehow relieve, that there can come, that this is the, if someone's, that it might be possible that if someone suffers for Christ, that it takes some of his suffering away. That this is what happens in the subtle energetic field. I don't know how to, I don't have the words. I have not worked on my philosophy yet. These are some intuitions. So perhaps it can work this way, but obviously it cannot be superimposed because mm, this is the doctrine. I mean, doctrine. The doctrine starts when the church starts, when this is organized. But generally, this is the belief in the free will. So if we are given the free will, it only counts when it's given willingly. So we cannot take it by any kind of rape, either spiritual, either literal or metaphorical. So you cannot say you will suffer for Christ now, because that is not suffering for Christ. That is a crime. So this is actually adding another sin to the many. So I believe that humankind, after the death and resurrection, had this new opening, but it has failed. People have continued to sin. So we are where we are. And there's a huge question about the Roman Catholic Church concerning its start. So one of the questions that I have is whether it was just to control the Christians, so actually to suppress the faith and put it in some politically acceptable, well, let's use the modern word, system, although I would not call it that way at that time. Even if I believe but that was the Middle Ages, I think, when they, so perhaps I think then they started using the word system. I don't remember exactly, but I think it is somewhere in the ancient writings. Anyway, it's quite possible that that was the reason why the Roman Catholic Church, was started. I believe that some of the doctrines of the Roman Catholic Church are simply false doctrines, and they need to be reviewed, and we must arrive at the truth of this faith. One of the false doctrines is that we are supposed to suffer. This is not true. This is simply not true. This is not what the Bible says. Or perhaps not says, but this is not what the Bible is. This is not the intention. I think this is the right word. This is not the intention. So this is not the road we are out to travel. We are not to sin, and we are to create the God's kingdom on earth. And these are totally different attitudes. But obviously many people prefer to sin and to suffer. So there's some misunderstanding, and I don't think that many people are capable to live that kind of virginal life in relation to the sin too. So overall, I can see what's going on, and I know that the entertainment wants to take over the sacred places and wants to use the people for their own purposes. And I will never agree to that. So being in conflict with the Roman Catholic Church as I am, and having my questions concerning the faith, for instance, I don't know if this is the road to travel for me, because Jesus said that he did not come to convert the just. I am the just. So perhaps I should have never started walking up that path, or perhaps I have already traveled it for long enough that which makes it somehow no longer the path. I don't know. But even if you relate Christianity and the Gospel to the Old Testament, then one can have problems with what Jesus was doing actually, which I believe were the problems Jews had. That's the argument of the survival of the religion. If we really believe in the God's presence in human life. So if the religions have survived for so long, it must be agreed upon, or not agreed upon. God must have given his consent. But then, if so many crimes have been happening, well, that probably is a test for human beings, and I believe there will be the day of judgment one day. I don't know, I think that it gives some orientation. So, generally, if you attack the sacred places, I am certainly not with you. But on the other hand, I want to emphasize it strongly that if you attack the sacred places, like the temple of Artemis, I'm not with you either. And I have this sacredness of nature, which is very, very important for me. I also believe that there were all sorts of weird creatures that we somehow find in the folklore tales or in some dramatic works, perhaps in some fiction too. I cannot think of fiction now. Well, certainly we find them in fairy tales. And this is life too. So I think that the death really comes with the modern technology. This is the real evil, because it's killing us. And I also think that there's the problem of the snake and generally animals, as they have been used and abused by humankind. I believe that animals have spirits of their own, and that the spirits are sacred. I believe that we have connections, the life on earth, that we have connections with extraterrestrial civilizations, and I believe there are quite many involved in the kind of life we have had on the planet Earth. And I believe that there have arrived new ones, and the new ones are really the enemy to humankind. I don't know if to other forms of life too, but to humankind definitely. To all appearances, my civilization has not arrived yet, considering the conditions of life I have. But I believe they will. So, for me, the Christian faith and the Roman Catholic Church fall into this order of God's rule over the planet Earth, with the people having the free will, and if they are making their own destruction, they are. Agnieszka Barta Magdalena Rojek, 28th of January 2021. 4 past midnight, 4 past, well, What time is it really? 12 p.m. Krakow, Poland. Have I already said it? So, my noble queendom is really the greatest one because it has place for all this life. It's just so many things have started happening, and the attack on me was very powerful. It's actually essential that I'm a virgin. Virgins have what others don't have, and with the body, the connections, I cannot really do what I could do if it were not for that devastation. But this is the technological world that has done it to me, and this is, the sexuality, the perversions are just a means, but the real enemy. These are, well, that's what the kind of people are for. If you want to destroy someone, you employ such people, and it makes me really sad that so many of those who should have been on my side have gone to that side. Especially that I know it for sure I can never respect the whole. I wonder if we are going to see Jim Morrison as the modern upgraded type. It's really disgusting.